Well, a bombshell was recently released by who, at the moment we don't know, that depicts a recording that depicts Kari Lake, a senatorial candidate in Arizona and also a firebrand for the MAGA movement, in conversation with Arizona GOP chairman Jeff Dewit. And in this conversation, he's trying to bribe her not to run for the Senate, which she is now doing. So this is probably an older conversation. And he's saying a lot of ominous things that I think, beyond just being patently unethical, beyond being a reflection of the political system in America, also kind of reflects the nature of party politics and how they are unhealthy for the survival of our republic. And also, well, we'll get into that in a moment. But before we get into all of that, and I show you some of the clip and I analyze it, if you guys want a conservative, pro-America, philosophical-based perspective on the day's events, on social and cultural issues, then I would ask you humbly to please subscribe to this channel right now, leave a like on this video, because we are going to have a revolution of the mind that turns the tables of the system upside down and that inspires and engenders a new love of America within the hearts of Americanism, within the hearts of Americans, and we're going to do so by means of reason, thought, and intellectualism. Now, let's see a few clips from this video, from this recording rather, and let's analyze it on the other side. Here is one clip where he is trying to literally bribe Miss Lake not to run. Go.
Is there a number at which
I can be bought?
not be bought?
That's what it's about.
You can take a pause for a couple of years.
No.
And then go right back to what you're doing.
No. 10 million, 20 million, 30, no. A billion, no.
Okay, here's another clip where he says, okay, there are some very powerful people that don't want you in. They want a fresh face. Go.
There are very powerful people that want to keep you out.
Oh, no, they do.
But they're willing to put their money where their mouth is in a big way. So, this conversation never happened.
This is crazy, though. They should want me. I'm a great candidate. People love me. These people are corrupt.
Okay, here's another clip where Kari Lake just seems completely and utterly mystified. She's like, I cannot believe this is happening. People don't hit the country. And then Dewit says something very interesting. He says that if this conversation were to get out, he's afraid he might get killed because his car might blow up. Go.
But again, it's like,
You know what it is? The people don't get to choose their elected officials unless they're pre-approved by the swamp. And the swamp doesn't pre-approve of me.
You need a strong party to help
I think
win.
you should go public with this and then say, hey,
No.
these people don't want to, they don't want,
And then I turn my key in my car and I just, I like my car.
Tell them I'm not flattered.
Wow. Where do we start? Well, first, let me say this. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised because the political system in America, far from being indicative of representative government, far from being based on the virtuous principles of consent of the governed, of a reason, of sound thinking, of moral principles, of philosophy, it is instead an amalgamation of power interests called power politics that direct the course of our system through intimidation, manipulation, through greed, through obfuscation, through things that are done in the dark that are not moral. That is how the system is run. Many of you may already say, well, Christian, I already knew this. But did you know this is not just a feature of politics writ large, but this is instead a feature of the party system that America has so willingly decided to embrace, or rather, has embraced since the conception of our country, even though the founding generation was incredibly skeptical of political parties for this very reason. The kind of phenomenon you are seeing in this conversation, my friends, is absolutely indicative of the party system's corruption of first principles and of our Republican system, small R Republican, classical Republican system. How so? Let's conceive of the American political party system as a matter of layers. On layer one, you've got your basic party worker who hands out flyers, hands out pamphlets, and just tries to get the good word out about their candidate. Okay, this is someone who has minimal connections, is not really in the know. Now, let's say you have several other layers, and the deeper you go under the ground, you get to like the deepest layer possible. Let's say layer 5 for sake of argument. At layer 5, you have the party boss, who is so far removed from the surface, who is so far removed from the issues writ large, and is more worried about what he can do to advance his political party, what he can do to advance his desired candidate, and what he can do to appease those around him who he is now obligated to by virtue of being in the party system. What am I saying? What I'm saying is political parties are structured in such a way that the deeper someone gets into their system, the more embedded someone is into the political party system, the less concerned they are about truth, about principles, about morality, about sound thinking, and the more worried they are about maintaining power, achieving power, and being corrupted by the norms of power, which will cause them to disregard every single thing that is required for a healthy political system to flourish and embrace every vice that corrupts that political system. This is why party politics is so dangerous. And this is why, as conservatives, we have to say, no, we're going to put America first by first looking at our own political system and asking what needs to be reformed here, what needs to be rooted out here, what needs to be reanalyzed here, because the moment we do that is the moment we can put this thing in perspective. America first is not just about setting up to people on the world stage and saying, we are going to be America, we're going to have the first principle of obligation to our own people, we're not going to have entangling alliances. All that stuff is good and I love it. But America first is fundamentally about rediscovering what our country is, the philosophies that animate our country, and then pushing forward on that basis to destroy every single institution and system that corrupts or negates the principles of our country. And the political party system is one of those, unfortunately. The further you are from the ground, the less you can see land. The further you are within the system, truth is no longer a consideration. That's why he can speak like this. And he can say, well, this is not about Trump. This is not about morality. This is not about anything. Of course it is. But Mr. Dewit is so blinded by his own environment that he cannot conceptualize a world beyond his environment because the norms of power, the nature of power is that it dominates the mind. Libido dominandi. That is one of the reasons why you have so many narcissists attracted to power. But there's something even deeper beyond the party system, which I think that is a disgrace to the health of our republic. When you have a system of government that is meant to, and this is the entire idea of the American Republic, that is literally meant to provide internal checks on power through checks and balances, and then reinforce itself through a appreciation of the consent of the majority, and then by also having these internal checks and by having the consent of the people, protect the minority who may have been run over in a traditional democracy. When you have a system like this, anything that compromises the integrity of that system endangers the people, and most importantly, endangers the minority who can then become attacked by the forces who manage to exploit the vulnerabilities within the classically Republican system. Because what does the word republic mean? It means res publica, the people within a system that is meant to serve them, but in all reality, this system has become exploited by people that do not serve them, but instead serve their own interests. And many of us know this, but few of us want to actually trace back the source of this to a deviation from first principles, a deviation from sound thinking, a deviation from philosophy, which has then shaped our entire political landscape. How often do you hear a politician or a corporate media spokesperson or corporate media anchor talk about the substantive issues? How often do you hear a politician or a corporate media person talk about, in a substantive way, the morality of certain policies beyond simply hand-wringing and beyond simple, superficial nonsense? You don't. Most of the time, political issues are surface level, and that is by design, because the less the people think, the more those who have thought about the system in a Machiavellian way can control the system, by virtue of that also control the people. Now, Kari Lake is someone, regardless of what you think about her, I've had her on this channel, I think she's one of the most genuine people in American politics. But she is someone who is close enough to the ground where she has said, oh, no. I'm not surrounded by this environment of power norms. I'm not bathed in this Machiavellian dogma. I am someone who believes in America and the purest idea of America, and that is going to guide me. You have to have a strong, solid moral basis in order to contest this system. But as I mentioned, this does not surprise me. It doesn't surprise me because for a very, very long time, this has been how the system has worked. The philosopher Hannah Arendt made a very important observation. She said that in the 60s or the 50s, the term national security became the raison d'etat of our political regime. What does that mean? That means that national security was used by those in power to overpower any other consideration for policy, and it was also used to justify things that under any moral standard would have been absolutely immoral and illegitimate and unethical. How is this important to this conversation? Well, very simply. Because when certain principles or concepts are used to override all others, they can then be levied by those in power who stand to benefit from those concepts being used for those purposes. Now, when our entire system is based on an apparatus that affirms that kind of cynical Machiavellianism, whether it be seen in the media, social, academic, industrial complex, whether it be seen in the military-industrial complex, whether it be seen in the example of the administrative state, the managerial state, or more popularly called the deep state, whether it be seen in all these different avenues of control and manipulation that don't care about our country and care more about gaining control and power, regardless of where it's seen, you can easily see this 15,000-legged apparatus at play, using words, ideas to override all others, and by doing so, deceive the public into believing that they need to go along with you. That's what's going on here, my friends. Do not see this as a bug of our system. See what happened to Kari Lake as a feature of our system, of a system detached from sound thinking, of a system detached from our founding principles, of a system detached from a rigorous posture of the mind, and instead that caves towards vain fascinations that use and levy emotion and sentiment against the people. A system that is just not healthy. That is what we need to focus on. And that is what we need to not reform, really, but really gut out as Americans. Because we all inherit an intellectual tradition, my friends, that requires the hearts and minds of the people to be in a pure state or a near pure state. And I'll close on this. I made this point recently. Most of the political issues have nothing to do with politics and everything to do with the mentality of the people. And if the people are not fed inspiring and thought-provoking and compelling cultural images, then their perception of their culture, and then by consequence, the perception of their politics and the perception of the institutions that make up their politics will all be in a poor state. Human beings require cultural symbols to motivate us towards higher ideas so we can then try to get closer to those higher ideas by pushing our minds further. And by pushing our minds further, our actions will then correlate with that. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is, if we don't have things in our culture to really make us think and wonder and appreciate things, we won't be able to appreciate the delicate state of our political condition. Let me put it in more even plainer language. Beauty, which is simply the proper ordering of something according to its form, according to its nature. Beauty is something that has been lost in our culture. And if you ask someone, what is a beautiful political system? They might say, what the heck are you talking about, beautiful system? What it means is, what is the political system that works best in the way that it's intended to work? And even if you ask someone that, you may still get a deer in the headlights stare. That's because our minds are not inspired toward those higher principles. The revolution of 1776 did not happen in a vacuum. It happened within a context of rich philosophical texts and debates and critical thinking and reason. And only until we return to that point in our culture will we be able to address this issue. We will be able to address the rot that has basically defined our current political system. As for Mr. Dewit, I think he needs to resign. And he should probably do the heroic thing by exposing everyone else in the system on the state level and the national level, which he certainly knows people, who is of the same kind of mentality as them, and they too should resign. We must have the righteous fire of the mind go against this kind of immoral trickery, or else our republic's health will continue to deteriorate, and the kind of backroom deals that you saw that almost happened here, but of course Kari Lake was very courageous and so it didn't happen, will continue to happen, and our republic will be sold down the river. The principles of our republic, concern of the governed, and all that kind of stuff, will mean nothing or will be mere platitudes in the face of those who actually run the system. We need a revolution of the mind. We need a time of exposure, a time of revelation, and also a time of justice to root out those who seek to harm America from our system and to put people in the system who understand what it means to be an American, and then also provide accountability with those people. We need a full-ranged revolution of the mind. And I believe we can get it. We can get it by, again, as I always say, by being persistent in doing the right thing and being an infant in evil. My friends, if you like this video, be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff. Also, if you want to support me, also be sure to join my Discord, donate to me on Patreon, PayPal, all that good stuff as well. My friends, study history, study philosophy, remain morally convicted, and please, 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 stay pensive. Bye, guys.